What if everything you think you know about manifestation has been working against you this entire time? What if the very techniques you've been taught, the affirmations you've been repeating, the visualizations you've been practicing are actually creating an energetic barrier between you and everything you desire? I know that might sound impossible right now. You've probably been told that you just need to think positive thoughts, visualize your dream life, and trust the process. But here's what nobody talks about. There are 5 critical mistakes that almost everyone makes when they start their manifestation journey, and these mistakes don't just slow down your results. They completely block the flow of abundance trying to reach you. If you've been feeling like you're doing everything right but nothing is shifting, if you've been wondering why other people seem to manifest effortlessly while you're still waiting for your breakthrough, then what I'm about to share with you could change everything. Because once you understand these 5 mistakes, once you see how they've been operating in your life, you'll finally understand why your manifestations have been stuck in limbo. And more importantly, you'll know exactly how to shift out of these patterns and into perfect alignment with everything that's been waiting for you. If this message found its way to you today, it wasn't by accident. The universe has a way of delivering exactly what we need when we're ready to receive it. So if you're sensing that this is your moment, that this information could be the missing piece you've been searching for, I want you to hit that subscribe button right now. Let that be your energetic declaration that you're ready to step into a new level of manifestation mastery. The first mistake that's blocking your manifestations is what I call desperate attachment, and it's probably the most common pattern I see. This happens when you become so focused on a specific outcome, so invested in exactly how and when your manifestation needs to appear, that you literally squeeze the life out of it. Think about it like this: when you hold a butterfly too tightly, what happens? It can't fly. It becomes trapped by the very hands that wanted to help it soar. Your manifestations work the same way. The moment you grip them with desperation, the moment you start checking your phone every 5 minutes to see if your specific person texted, or obsessively checking your bank account to see if money appeared, you're sending a very clear message to the universe. You're saying, I don't trust you. I don't believe this is actually going to work. I need proof right now. And here's what most people don't realize. That energy of desperation, that frequency of lack and fear, becomes the dominant vibration you're broadcasting. You might be saying your affirmations perfectly, you might be visualizing every single day, but underneath all of that, you're radiating desperation. And desperation can only attract more situations that make you feel desperate. I remember working with someone who had been trying to manifest their soulmate for over 2 years. They had vision boards, they had detailed lists, they were doing everything they thought they should be doing. But every day that passed without meeting this person made them more anxious, more worried that maybe it wasn't going to happen for them. They were so attached to their timeline, so invested in their specific picture of how love should arrive, that they were completely closed off to the beautiful connections that were actually trying to enter their life. The universe was sending them opportunities to meet amazing people, but they couldn't see any of them because they were only looking for their very specific idea of the one. They had become so attached to their manifestation that they were literally repelling it. This is the paradox of manifestation that nobody talks about. The more desperately you need something to happen, the more you push it away. The more you try to control exactly how it appears, the more you block the infinite ways it could actually show up. But there's something even deeper happening here, something that touches the very core of how manifestation actually works. When you're desperately attached to an outcome, you're operating from a place of separation. You're essentially saying, I am here and what I want is over there, and I need to somehow bridge this gap. But true manifestation doesn't work from separation. It works from wholeness. When you're desperately seeking something outside of yourself to make you feel complete, you're affirming that you're incomplete right now. And that incompleteness, that sense of lack, becomes your dominant creative force. You end up manifesting more experiences that confirm you don't have what you want, because that's the energy you're living in. The shift happens when you learn to hold your desires with open palms instead of clenched fists. When you can want something deeply while simultaneously being okay if it doesn't happen exactly the way you pictured. This isn't about giving up on your dreams or settling for less. It's about trusting that the universe has access to possibilities you can't even imagine from your current vantage point. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Most people think that letting go means you stop caring or stop taking action. That's not what I'm talking about at all. I'm talking about inspired action from a place of excitement and curiosity rather than desperate action from a place of fear and control. When you release desperate attachment, you become available to receive your manifestations in ways that are even better than what you originally asked for. You become open to the upgraded versions, the plot twists that exceed your expectations, the synchronicities that deliver exactly what you need in the most perfect timing. The second mistake that's blocking your flow is what I call manifestation perfectionism, and this one is incredibly sneaky because it disguises itself as being really good at the process. This is when you become so focused on doing manifestation right that you lose the joy, the playfulness, the natural flow that actually creates magic. Maybe you've fallen into this pattern. You have your morning routine down to a science. You do your affirmations at exactly the right time, in exactly the right way. Your visualization practice is detailed and precise. You track your gratitude, you monitor your thoughts, you analyze every single thing that happens to see if it's a sign that your manifestation is working. But here's what happens when you approach manifestation like a rigid formula. You suck all the joy out of it. And joy, that feeling of lightness and excitement and natural flow, is one of the most powerful manifestation frequencies there is. When you're in perfectionist mode, you're constantly judging yourself. Did I visualize for long enough today? Were my affirmations strong enough? Am I grateful enough? Was that a negative thought? Did I mess up my manifestation by having that moment of doubt? This creates what I call the manifestation anxiety loop. You become so worried about doing it wrong that you're constantly stressed about your manifestation practice. And stress, worry, and self-judgment are some of the lowest vibrational frequencies there are. So instead of raising your vibration, your perfectionism is actually lowering it. I worked with someone who had turned manifestation into a full-time job. They had spreadsheets tracking their progress, elaborate morning and evening routines, and they were spending hours each day on their manifestation practice. But they felt miserable. They were exhausted, anxious, and nothing was flowing into their life despite all their effort. When we dug deeper, we discovered that they had completely lost touch with what they actually wanted. They had become so focused on the process, so obsessed with doing it perfectly, that they had forgotten why they started in the first place. Their manifestation practice had become another source of pressure and judgment instead of a source of joy and connection. Here's the truth that might surprise you. The universe responds more to your energy than to your technique. You could do the most elaborate manifestation ritual, but if you're doing it from a place of stress and perfectionism, it won't be nearly as effective as a simple, heartfelt moment of gratitude when you're feeling genuinely joyful. The universe isn't keeping score of how many affirmations you said or whether you visualized for exactly 20 minutes. The universe is responding to your overall vibration, your general feeling state, the dominant energy you're broadcasting throughout your day. This doesn't mean technique doesn't matter. Practices like visualization, affirmations, and gratitude can be incredibly powerful. But they're most powerful when they feel good, when they light you up, when they connect you to the feeling of already having what you desire. The shift happens when you start approaching manifestation with curiosity instead of perfectionism. When you can experiment with different practices and see what feels most aligned for you. When you can have days where you don't do any formal practice at all, and that's perfectly okay because you're living in the energy of your desires. Some of my most powerful manifestations have happened during the times when I wasn't actively trying to manifest anything. When I was just living my life, following my joy, taking inspired action, and staying open to magic. Because that's when you're in true alignment, when manifestation becomes a natural byproduct of how you're being rather than something you have to work hard to achieve. But there's something even more important here, something that connects to the very essence of how creation works. When you're in perfectionist mode, you're trying to force manifestation to happen through your willpower and effort. But true manifestation happens through alignment and allowing. It's less about making things happen and more about becoming available for them to happen through you. Think about how nature manifests. Does a tree stress about whether it's growing perfectly? Does a flower worry about whether it's blooming correctly? No. They simply follow their natural impulses, trust their inner wisdom, and allow life to flow through them. That's the kind of effortless manifestation that becomes possible when you release perfectionism and embrace your natural creative flow. If what you're hearing is starting to make sense, if you're recognizing some of these patterns in your own manifestation journey, I want you to hit that like button right now. Let that be your energetic signal that you're ready to shift out of these old patterns and into a more natural, joyful way of creating your reality. The third mistake that's quietly sabotaging your manifestations is something I call future-focused living, and this one might be the hardest to recognize because our entire culture trains us to live this way. This is when you become so focused on getting to your desired future that you completely miss the magic and opportunities that are available to you right now. Here's how this pattern usually plays out. You decide you want to manifest something. Maybe it's your dream relationship, or financial abundance, or a new career. And immediately, your mind jumps to that future moment when you'll finally have it. You start living for that moment. Everything else becomes just a stepping stone to get there. You tell yourself, once I manifest my soulmate, then I'll be happy. Once I have financial freedom, then I'll feel secure. Once I get my dream job, then I'll feel fulfilled. And in the meantime, you're essentially putting your life on hold, waiting for that future moment when everything will be perfect. But here's what's actually happening energetically when you live this way. You're affirming that happiness, security, and fulfillment exist somewhere in the future, not here and now. You're literally training yourself to believe that what you want is always just out of reach, always in some future moment that hasn't arrived yet. And since manifestation works by bringing you experiences that match your dominant beliefs and feeling states, what do you think you end up creating? More waiting. More almost but not quite. More situations that keep your desired reality perpetually in the future. I see this all the time with people who are trying to manifest money. They're constantly focused on that future moment when they'll have financial abundance, but they're completely neglecting the abundance that's already available to them right now. They can't enjoy a beautiful sunset because they're worried about their bills. They can't appreciate a gift from a friend because it reminds them that they can't afford to reciprocate. They're so focused on the financial abundance they don't have that they can't see or receive the abundance that's already flowing into their life in other forms. This creates what I call the manifestation mirage. Just like a mirage in the desert, the closer you get to it, the further away it seems to move. Because you're approaching it from the energy of, I don't have this yet, which only creates more experiences of not having it yet. The universe operates in the present moment. It doesn't understand future tense. When you say, I will be wealthy or I will find love, the universe hears I will, which means not now. So it keeps your manifestation safely in the future, always about to happen but never quite arriving. But there's something even more profound happening here. When you're constantly focused on the future, you're missing all the ways the universe is already responding to your desires. You're missing the synchronicities, the opportunities, the people who could help you, the ideas that could transform everything. You're literally walking past your manifestations because you're not present enough to recognize them. I remember someone who had been trying to manifest their dream business for months. They were so focused on this grand vision of success in the future that they kept dismissing smaller opportunities that came their way. A client who wanted to work with them but at a lower rate than they eventually wanted to charge. A collaboration opportunity that wasn't exactly their dream scenario but could have been an amazing learning experience. A chance to speak at a small local event when they were holding out for bigger stages. They were so attached to their specific vision of how success should look that they couldn't see how the universe was actually trying to deliver their dream to them, step by step, opportunity by opportunity. They were waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect opportunity, while saying no to all the imperfect but valuable opportunities that were right in front of them. The shift happens when you learn to find your desired feeling states in the present moment. If you want to manifest love, how can you feel loved right now? If you want to manifest abundance, how can you feel abundant with what you already have? If you want to manifest success, how can you celebrate the successes you've already achieved? This isn't about pretending you have something you don't have or denying that you want more. It's about recognizing that the feeling states you're seeking already exist within you right now. And when you can access those feelings in the present moment, when you can genuinely feel grateful, abundant, loved, successful right now, you become a magnetic match for more experiences that will make you feel that way. But here's the beautiful paradox. When you truly find fulfillment in the present moment, when you're genuinely happy with what you have while still being excited about what's coming, that's when your manifestations start flowing in the most effortless way. Because you're no longer coming from lack or desperation. You're creating from wholeness, from a place of already being fulfilled. The fourth mistake is perhaps the most damaging because it operates at such a deep level that most people don't even realize it's happening. This is what I call worthiness wounds, and it's when your subconscious mind believes that you don't actually deserve the things you're trying to manifest. Here's how this plays out. On the conscious level, you're doing everything right. You're affirming that you deserve abundance. You're visualizing your dream life. You're taking action toward your goals. But deep down in the hidden corners of your subconscious mind, there's a voice whispering, "Who do you think you are? People like you don't get to have things like that. You're not special enough, smart enough, worthy enough." These worthiness wounds usually come from childhood experiences, from things that were said to you or about you when you were young and impressionable. Maybe you were told that money doesn't grow on trees, that you have to work hard for everything you get, that wanting nice things is selfish or greedy. Maybe you were made to feel like you were too much or not enough in some way. Or maybe these wounds come from past experiences where you were disappointed, where you hoped for something and it didn't work out, where you were hurt by someone you trusted. And now, even though you consciously want to manifest beautiful things in your life, part of you is terrified of being disappointed again. Part of you would rather not try too hard, not get your hopes up too high, because at least that way you won't be devastated if it doesn't work out. The tricky thing about worthiness wounds is that they're often invisible to your conscious mind. You might genuinely believe that you deserve good things. You might even get angry if someone suggests that you don't think you're worthy. But meanwhile, your subconscious mind is quietly sabotaging every manifestation attempt. This shows up in so many subtle ways. You might find yourself procrastinating on important actions that could move you toward your goals. You might attract situations that are almost what you want but not quite, like job offers that are close to your dream job but have something that makes them not quite right. You might find yourself in patterns where good things start to happen but then mysteriously fall apart at the last minute. I worked with someone who had been trying to manifest a loving relationship for years. On paper, they were doing everything right. But every time they met someone who could potentially be the person they were looking for, they would unconsciously find ways to sabotage the connection. They would become overly critical, or they would pull back emotionally, or they would create drama that pushed the other person away. When we dug into what was really going on, we discovered that they had a deep-seated belief that they were fundamentally flawed, that anyone who really got to know them would eventually leave. So even though they consciously wanted love, their subconscious mind was protecting them from the pain of eventual rejection by making sure they never got close enough to anyone for it to really matter. These worthiness wounds create what I call the manifestation ceiling. No matter how hard you try, no matter how perfect your technique, you can't manifest beyond what you unconsciously believe you deserve. It's like there's an invisible barrier that keeps you from reaching the level of abundance, love, success, or joy that you're consciously trying to create. The challenge is that you can't think your way out of these patterns. You can't just decide to believe you're worthy and expect everything to change overnight. These wounds live in your body, in your nervous system, in parts of your psyche that don't speak the language of logic and reason. Healing worthiness wounds requires a different approach. It requires compassion for the parts of you that learn to protect you by keeping you small. It requires gently exploring where these beliefs came from and understanding that they made sense at the time, even if they don't serve you now. Sometimes it requires professional support, therapy, coaching, energy work, or other healing modalities that can help you process and release these deep patterns. Sometimes it requires community, being around people who see your worth, even when you can't see it yourself. But here's what I want you to understand. Your worthiness isn't something you have to earn or prove. It's not dependent on your achievements, your bank account, your relationship status, or how perfectly you do anything. Your worthiness is inherent. It exists simply because you exist. The universe doesn't judge your manifestations based on whether you've been good enough, or worked hard enough, or suffered enough to deserve them. The universe is infinitely abundant, and it wants to flow through you in the most beautiful ways. The only thing blocking that flow is your own unconscious resistance, your own hidden beliefs about what you deserve. As you're listening to this, you might be recognizing some of these patterns in your own life. You might be starting to see how these worthiness wounds have been quietly influencing your manifestation journey. And if that's true, I want you to know that awareness is the first step toward healing. The fact that you can see these patterns means you're already beginning to outgrow them. The fifth and final mistake that's blocking your manifestations is what I call spiritual bypassing of action, and this might be the most controversial thing I share today because it goes against what a lot of people in the manifestation community teach. This is when you become so focused on the spiritual or energetic aspects of manifestation that you completely avoid taking practical action in the physical world. You think that if you just raise your vibration high enough, if you just align your energy perfectly, everything you want will magically appear without you having to do anything. Now, I want to be very clear about something. Energy and vibration are absolutely crucial to manifestation. Everything I've shared with you today has been about shifting your internal state, healing your relationship with your desires, and aligning with the flow of abundance. But manifestation doesn't happen in a vacuum. We live in a physical reality where energy needs to be expressed through action. Think about it this way. If you plant a seed in the ground and then sit back and just send it good vibes without ever watering it or giving it sunlight, what's going to happen? Nothing. The seed needs both the energetic intention and the physical care to grow into what it's meant to become. Your manifestations work the same way. You need both the inner work and the outer work. You need both the energetic alignment and the physical action. And when these two elements come together in harmony, that's when real magic happens. But here's where a lot of people get confused. They think that taking action means forcing things to happen through willpower and struggle. They think it means grinding and hustling and pushing through resistance. That's not what I'm talking about at all. I'm talking about inspired action. Action that feels good, that flows naturally from your aligned state, that feels like a natural expression of your desires rather than something you have to force yourself to do. When you're in true alignment, when you've done the inner work to release desperation and perfectionism and future-focused living and worthiness wounds, action starts to feel different. Instead of feeling heavy and effortful, it starts to feel light and exciting. Instead of feeling like something you have to do, it starts to feel like something you get to do. This is the difference between effortful action and inspired action. Effortful action comes from the mind, from should and have to and need to. It's driven by fear and scarcity and the belief that if you don't make it happen, no one will. Inspired action comes from the heart, from excitement and curiosity and joy. It's guided by intuition and feels like play rather than work. But here's what I've noticed. Some people use spiritual concepts as an excuse to avoid taking any action at all. They say they're waiting for divine timing, or they don't want to force anything, or they're just focusing on their vibration right now. And while these can be valid spiritual principles, sometimes they're being used to avoid the vulnerability and discomfort that comes with putting yourself out there in the world. Because here's the truth, taking action in alignment with your desires is actually a form of spiritual practice. When you take inspired action, you're demonstrating faith in your desires. You're showing the universe that you're serious about your manifestations. You're creating opportunities for synchronicities and miracles to occur. I worked with someone who wanted to manifest their dream business but kept saying they were just working on their mindset first. Months went by where they were reading books, taking courses, doing inner work, but never actually taking any steps to start the business. They had convinced themselves that they needed to be in perfect alignment before they could take any action. But what they didn't realize is that sometimes action itself creates alignment. Sometimes you have to step forward before you feel completely ready. Sometimes the universe needs to see that you're willing to meet it halfway before it can deliver the support and resources you need. When they finally started taking small, inspired actions, even though they didn't feel completely ready, everything started to shift. Opportunities began appearing. The right people started showing up. Resources became available. It was as if their willingness to take action despite their fears signaled to the universe that they were serious about their dreams. This doesn't mean you should take action from a place of desperation or force. It means you learn to distinguish between inspired action and effortful action. Inspired action feels expansive, exciting, and aligned. It might be scary because it's moving you toward growth, but it doesn't feel heavy or forced. You know, it's inspired action when it lights you up, even though it might challenge you. When it feels like a natural next step rather than something you're forcing yourself to do. When it connects you more deeply to your desires rather than taking you away from them. The most powerful manifestations happen when your inner work and your outer work are perfectly aligned. When you're doing the energetic work to release the blocks and limitations we've been talking about, and simultaneously taking inspired action in the direction of your dreams. This creates what I call the manifestation spiral. Your aligned action creates opportunities and results, which increases your faith and excitement, which raises your vibration, which attracts even better opportunities, which inspires even more aligned action. It becomes a beautiful upward spiral of co-creation between you and the universe.